Hi, and welcome to The Curling Show, the podcast that brings you interviews with the sport's top athletes and the people who shape the game. Brought to you by Bell's, the home of inspired brewing and the remarkable Two-Hearted Ale. I'm Dean Gemmel, and in this edition, we talked with Russ Howard. You know the guy, the second stone, how weird does that sound, on Canada's Olympic team. Thanks for being on the show, Russ. I know your schedule is pretty hectic right now, and I really appreciate your time. But first, congratulations on the win in Halifax, and has it sunk in yet, or are you still pinching yourself just a bit?
Yeah, it's hard to believe when you knew you won a big curling event and you're just out there battling against Stoughton or whoever else you were playing. But when somebody walks up to you in the street and says, "Hi, Olympian," or something like that, it just you look around to see if you're looking at somebody else. It's pretty cool to be called an Olympian. When
Brad talked to you last summer, did you ever sort of in your head entertain such thoughts, or was it just, well, I'll go as the fifth and we'll see what happens?
Well, yeah, it kind of happened in pieces. I was supposed to be the fifth coach, bottle washer, carry the broom type, helping out on any way I could without actually throwing rocks. And then when I became part of the team and actually started playing, you certainly that raised your level of excitement for sure, because we, all of a sudden you feel like you're part of it more than you would be if you're sitting on the sidelines. But I was just excited to play in the event, play my brother, play Furby, Martin, all the top teams in the world, and you knew they wanted it really bad. It wasn't like you're going to a spiel where, oh, well, we didn't qualify this weekend, we can do it again next weekend. This was, to qualify for the Olympics. But to be perfectly honest, I never really thought about winning the darn thing. It was just, performing well. And as a competitor, you want to beat everybody anyways. But to actually make the dream happen is pretty cool.
I have to be honest here. You talk about being named as a fifth and thinking about being chief bottle washer and bag holder. Back in June, I talked to Wayne Madon, the first edition of this show, and I said, I questioned the addition of you to the Gushue rink, which was really brilliant in hindsight. But I think I was like a lot of people. I said at the time, I thought they should pick someone who could play any position, and I didn't foresee you on the tee and throwing second stone. And then we all know what Jeff Stoughton said before the event. We know Dave Netawin maybe expressed a bit of skepticism. Did any of that sort of talk from the other curlers and the media help motivate you guys at all?
Oh, it helped a lot. And we're all competitors, and you get to be my age, you're pretty sensitive about that type of stuff. And but Brad, I walked into the room and Brad showed me the article, and I just started to laugh. And I tried to explain to Brad originally that you can't blame Stoughton for, it was probably idiotic to actually come out and say it, but you're certainly going to be thinking it. I certainly don't disagree with his thought process, because Brad's team hasn't won the Brier, they haven't won a Grand Slam, they haven't won a lot of things, and it's only because they're young and they're going to get their chance like everybody else. But to add like a senior citizen to a bunch of kids, it just didn't make any sense at all to a lot of people, and I don't blame them. And I didn't take it personally at all, because the situation is what it was. I've got a son that's almost Brad's age, so it obviously didn't make sense on paper and to a lot of people. And but what they didn't realize is we were good friends. We've known each other for a long time. We talked at the 2000 Junior when Brad missed his last shot, and he really appreciated it. And there was a lot of little behind-the-scenes stuff that we've done that I think united the five of us as a bunch of friends before people realized it.
Is that why you think it worked so well, because you guys were friends before the event?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think Brad, I don't know whether you know that story, but he missed his last shot to lose the Canadian final, and it happened to be my hometown here in Moncton, and I went zipping down. For some reason, I normally wouldn't do anything, but I just went down and say, "Hi, Brad, it's Russ Howard." And of course, he knew me, but I had never officially met him. And, I kind of did the old, how do you feel you threw that last rock? And he said, "I thought I threw it great, and my split time was good." And I said, "Well, then what are you worrying about? It's not much else you can do." And I'm a strong proponent that things happen for a reason. So I just said to Brad, you weren't meant to win this thing. Something bigger is going to be in your future, and don't worry about it. You threw the rock to the best of your ability, and it caught a slow spot or fudged a bit or whatever it was, and get on with it. You'll get over it. I've lost the Brier final 4 times. I know how it feels, and I haven't shot myself since. So, it's that type of talk, and I think he really appreciated it.
And then, of course, he went on and won the next year. So
that's right. Actually, they changed the eligibility age so that he was eligible, or he was done junior, and the next thing you know, he's the world junior champion. So, just hang in there.
Hey, I was a bit surprised, talking about the action in Halifax, I was a bit surprised by your team's conversations in the house, because they were actually a little more collaborative than I thought they would be. I was expecting you to be a little more authoritarian, but you almost seemed to be guiding the other guys to the decision you wanted to make. When you joined up with this team before the event, did you consciously think about how your personality would fit in and how you'd play with these guys?
Oh, for sure. And Toby's been a phenomenal help and a resource in that situation because he knows Brad, how he ticks and how he doesn't tick. And I've never been the type of guy. You ask anybody I've crow with, I'll ask for my three guys' opinions a lot. I think part of it is, if we make an error, let's make it a team error. I think I've always felt that way. And more importantly, in this situation, whoever's throwing the last rock, I do it with my team now. If my son has to throw a peel, I'll give him the option to either turn or he's the guy who's got to make it. If we want to throw hack weight or board weight, it depends on the individual who's throwing it. So I've always given my team input. But in this case, it's even more important because Brad's got to throw the important shot. He's got to be part of the architecture of the actual decision-making because what happens with the first 3 or 4 rocks can really affect what he's going to have to throw, and he's the guy that's got to make it. So I think it's really important that Brad has a tremendous amount of input.
Hey, in the 10th end of the final, Jamie Korab started things off by throwing up a guard and then it looked like he put his second rock in the hack. And, and the whole arena had the women's final from the days before fresh in their mind. So did you say anything to the team after those first 2 misses?
Yeah, actually, I watched the tape yesterday for the first time, and after we had the, I think it was the nose hit on the guard, which was our guard, I said, stay in the moment, boys. I had the presence of mind to do that. But, a lot of guys are giving me credit, and I'd like to think I've helped out a lot. But these kids are well coached, and they do a tremendous job of doing exactly what I just said, staying in the moment. And I'm out there reminding them once in a while, and I'd like to think my experience is helping. But
yeah, they didn't seem all that rattled, no matter what you said. I mean, they didn't seem especially rattled.
That's my point, and you can't be uncoached with no experience and walk into that situation and have Russ Howard say, "Oh, you better stay cool," because it's not going to work. You've got to have that inside your gut to begin with. And these guys, they came second in the Grand Slam final last year. They've gone to 3 Briars and performed well. They've won the World Junior. I think he's been in something like 9 national championships. He had more experience in a couple of the skips that were in the event, so it didn't shock me at all. It's just that, we weren't favored, so it comes as a shock to most people. But we can curl, and so can the other guys, and it depends on who brings their A game on that particular day.
Sure. Hey, you're going to turn 50 in Turin, and you're on a team with 3 25-year-olds. Are you going to be staying in the Olympic Village? Are you wondering if you're going to feel a bit like Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School? I mean, maybe there's like U.S. snowboarders partying with the Swedish women's bobsled team next door. What are your accommodations and so forth in Torino?
I'll tell you that. But we're all in the village for 2 or 3 days, 4 days, I'm not sure how many, and then when our competition starts, we zip out to Pinerolo, I think it's called, which is maybe half hour away, 45 minutes away, which is great because I think it gives us 2 situations. We can kind of soak in the ambiance of the Olympics itself and the experience and some of the other athletes, and then we can get down to business and try to start making some shots. And getting away from the venue is probably the best thing that can happen to us. But it's going to be interesting because I find the kids are, they're half my age to begin with. When they get there, they're going to feel old. Okay, so it's going to be interesting.
Hey, I think the CCA wanted you guys to play in Europe this week, but you've elected to play in Winnipeg in the Grand Slam event. I think you made the right decision, but to play against a tougher field. Is that why you wanted to go to Winnipeg this week?
Yeah, and they weren't against it either. They thought it was a good idea too. They, we got the time change, the different country, and the food and everything like that, and. Winnipeg, you're going to get great ice, you're going to get great rocks, you're get great teams, and it's a little bit easier flight. So we just decided to go to Winnipeg right from day one. That's probably the most successful Grand Slam event, and you get knowledgeable crowds, and there's a bit of money for sale there too. So it'll be kind of fun. Has
there been any discussion about what happens to this team after the Olympic Games?
No, good point. That's a great question. I'd like to think we'll play some spiels together, and I hopefully we'll get some invites around the world to go to some events. That's what usually happens when you win a Canadian championship. And I'm in for whatever ride we're on. They've got us training now, and who knows?
Hey, I asked Jim Wade about this, but with the success of the trials, and then to have your team come together where you have 3 guys from Newfoundland, 1 guy from New Brunswick, do you think we'll see teams in the future put themselves together less for provincial playdowns and more for the trials?
I think that opens up a whole interesting situation. When I was a kid, there was no Olympics, so it was Briar, and that's always been my goal. And we've only had 2 other chances to get to an official Olympic Games, and I think the mindset has changed now that you can pick up anybody. Like we had an injury 4 years ago, and we picked up my brother, and we're in New Brunswick. He's from Ontario, and that was one of the first ones, I think, and quite a few of the teams, Georgina Wheatcroft and Mada, and well, I guess he's the same province, but there's quite a bit of that going on now. And yeah, I think you will see that. Teams will sit down and decide what their goals are, and some people, their goal will be get to the next Olympics, and some people it'll be the Brier. And as soon as you say next Olympics, you can now pick players from anywhere in Canada.
Right, and you could see a team saying, let's play tour events in the trials, especially maybe if it was 2 years out from the trials, maybe you put together your team that way.
Yeah, very good point, and you might even have 2 teams. I did that when I first moved to New Brunswick. I was still curling the cash circuit with my brother and Pete Corner, and I was trying to formulate a team for the Brier Playdowns here in New Brunswick, so I actually played 2 different teams, and you might even see that type of thing because the Olympics is so far away for the next Olympics that you might see.
Sure, you had to remind the other guys about that, didn't you?
Yeah. Exactly.
You played and beat your brother Glenn in your very first game of the trials. How tough is it to play against your brother?
Yeah, it's not easy, and it's mostly for the reasons that he's a hell of a curler. We've played against. We used to throw rocks against each other, so it's not like it's new. We must have played against each other 1,000 times, and I think we tried as hard in those practices as we do in games. It's awkward because you don't see Glenn as much now anymore, and you walk into a bonspiel and here you're curling against the guy. It feels kind of weird, but we've done it 8 or 10 times now, and I think we're pretty used to that. The hard part with him is they've got one hell of a team there. That's from lead to skip. I picked them to make the playoffs, and when we beat them, I slotted us in instead of them. It was I said to the boys, this is a must-win, because if we miss the playoffs, it's probably on Glenn's account, because he was going to be one of the teams that was going to be right there, and that's exactly what happened. If he beats us, he's probably in the playoffs. He was 5-4.
Yeah, and he had a rock pick and a lot of other things.
So he lost 4 games on the last shot.
Right.
He had a rock pick. He had one pulled. Scored a 3 for Stoughton. He lost us in the last shot. He could have been there real easy.
Hey, in the email chains between myself and Jim Waite for arranging this interview, I found out your middle name is Winston. Do you think you would have had as great a career if you were Winston Howard instead of Russ Howard?
No, I don't. I think that would have affected me dramatically.
That's a tough one.
My parents, I'm 6 years older than my brother, and they wanted to call him Lance, and as a 6-year-old boy, I talked him out of it, so he owes me one too.
All right. Okay, Russ, we end with the run-back segment. I give you a topic, and you give me your thoughts in 3 words or less. Italian food.
I love spaghetti.
Favorite city to curl in, and you can't say Halifax.
Calgary.
3 toughest teams you'll face in the Olympics.
Lindholm, Switzerland, Stockley, I guess it is. And I'm going to go Scotland.
Olympic athlete you'd want to watch if you weren't curling.
Winter Olympics?
Yeah. Who is there but curlers, right? So who cares?
Yeah, anybody in the hockey team.
All right. The color orange.
It's wonderful.
All right.
Uplifting.
Thanks for your time, Russ. I'm actually on my way to Winnipeg this week, so I might see you out there.
You bet.
That's Russ Howard on The Curling Show, brought to you by Bell's Brewery. Find out more about all their beers at bellsbeer.com. Before we serve up some more black pudding, I'd like to offer up a few of my wishes for 2006. I wish that TSN would realize that curling deserves more than 5 seconds of highlights on SportsCenter, and that they would actually be highlights instead of simply shots of curlers sliding out with a stone. I wish that the CBC would use at least one clip of curling in their Olympic promotion commercials. All this talk about being truly Canadian, and then they show luge instead of curling. I wish that NBC falls in love with the American curling teams at the Olympics, and that they end up on a couch talking with Katie Couric on the Today Show. I wish that the CCA would let the winners of the Tim Hortons Brier and the Scott Tournament of Hearts keep the trophies for a while and take them around the country, Stanley Cup style. If they get scratched and dinged, who cares? Just hardware. I wish that curlers would start to spend money on equipment the way golfers do. Healthy equipment manufacturers are good for the game. We would all help our sport a lot if we bought new shoes and gloves more often and sprung for the latest carbon fiber handle broom every year. I wish that someone would design fashionable clothing for female curlers, something that women and men will appreciate. I wish that people continue to listen to this show and tell others about it. Thanks for listening. Have a great 2006.